We'll get going. Again, hi, my name is Nicole and I work at Trusted. I'm the head of community. And tonight is all about, so do you want to be a travel nurse? If you're not familiar with Trusted, we are the place for the modern nurse. We, as you probably know, place nurses in travel positions all across the country. We also have a wealth of career resources from events to blog articles to podcasts, all that good stuff. And tonight's event is obviously really close to our hearts because we've placed thousands of nurses in travel assignments all across the country. And so without further ado, I want to go through a couple things before we get going. Number one, if you have questions at any time of the evening, please ask them through the Zoom chat and we will flow them to the right speaker. Two, this is a time to listen, learn, and connect with fellow nurses, obviously all across the country, which is amazing. And three, it's really to find out if travel nursing is right for you, because there are so many different facets to consider when you consider that career path in general. And the agenda, I'll roll through this quick and then I'll introduce our first speaker. We're going to obviously finish our welcome in just a moment. We're going to talk about what travel nursing is, how to choose an agency, your travel contract, those nitty-gritty details, your assignments, Q&A, and then we'll close it out all within a happy hour. So first, I'm so delighted to introduce Brittany Greaves. She's a wonderful human being and a very, very experienced travel nurse. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brittany.
Hi guys, I'm Brittany. I am a PICU CVICU travel nurse. I've been traveling for 4 years now. I started in North Carolina, my home state. Woohoo! I'm currently in LA now, where I usually on my travel assignments I find the best food, the best adventures, but I cannot dance. That's just my thing. I can't do it. Before I became a traveler, I worked with adults in various entities, but now my heart's with the little people. And I've done 6 international medical missions. I've been to Haiti, Johannesburg, Conakry, Guinea, and Russia. And fun fact, I was a college soccer All-American. So yeah, those are a little bit of facts about me. I hope I can learn more about you guys. So these are kind of some of my pictures. You guys can see my Instagram. It's CatchBrit if you can. But always I try to give advice, and the little nuggets that I try to give are there's always more magic inside of you. So if you think that you can become a traveler, if you think that it's right for you, then do it. Just get out there and believe in yourself and believe in the magic inside of you. Okay? So first off, what is travel nursing? That's what we're all here for and to find out more information about. So basically, it's when registered nurses work short term for contract roles. They can be in hospital settings, clinic settings. I know people have worked for the Navajo tribe. So it's various settings that you can kind of work for, but we just supplement the permanent staff. So whether it's filling gaps for shortages, maybe some nurses are going back to school, or an increase in patient population. For my population, we get an increase in flu and RSV season. And as we've also seen, the pandemic has increased a lot of want for travel nurses. And then some hospitals also need travel nurses when they're upgrading. For example, I did an Epic up role. So that was another time that I got contracted out. So basically how it works is travel nurses are primarily contracted through travel nursing agencies like Trusted or other job marketplaces, and they place the nurses in the facilities. So just so you're aware that the agency is the employer, not the facility. So kind of the rundown of how things flow is nurses like me and you will go and we'll either look for a travel nursing company, or sometimes I've had even recruiters reach out to me. They'll either call you or text you. Sometimes I've even gotten a DM. And basically they'll find the best job for you. So if you want to go to Utah, they'll look for hospitals that are looking for nurses in Utah. And if they match up with your specialty and your experience, they'll send you out. So basically what that happens is you'll submit your paperwork and everything, and the agency will submit you to the facility. So you don't have any hands in that. The agency does all of the work. So when the agency has submitted you, the nurse manager will contact you via call, sometimes Zoom, or other travel nurse agencies actually have a pre-recorded interview where you just answer short questions, about various things, typical interview questions. And then the nurse manager will get back to your agency and they'll say, yes, we would love to hire Brittany. We would love to hire Chelsea. And then you sign your contract, and that's where the fun begins. So after the fun begins, you get to onboard, and then you get to go to Utah if that's where you decide. So I like to tell people that this can happen super fast or super slow. I decided I wanted to travel nurse in November. I didn't leave until April, but that was on my own choice. If you would like it to move faster, you get your paperwork in, you contact the agencies, and they'll get moving as fast as you want them to. But if you need a little bit of time to prepare, a little time to get, yourself, ready to do it, you can go as slow as you want to as well. So, since we as travel nurses are expected to travel, we get short-term contracts. The contracts can last, whether they might be 4 weeks, they might be the normal one is 13 weeks, but then you can go as long as 16, 20, etc. But how the pay is broken down is you have a taxable hourly rate, and then you get a housing stipend, or your agency provides housing, and then you get a meals and incidental rate. And that's all jumbled up into this nice little pretty package. And Trusted actually has a lot of information on this. So if you catch their blogs or any of their other chats, which we will email to you all later, there's broken down information about that. So we can go a little bit further into that. But basically how it works, and what you'll hear in the travel nurse community, is a 50-mile radius is a thing that a lot of people say, but mainly it's just if you need to overnight stay somewhere, that is what the housing stipend and our agency provided housing, like hourly rate, is all jumbled up into. So those are like the logistics of how the pay is broken down. But like I said, there's definitely a lot more resources that Trusted has for you guys to look at later. So my number one thing that I always try to get people to kind of think about before they start travel nursing is, what is your goal? What drives you? Why are you travel nursing? Do you want to just travel and see the world? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to meet new friends in a new city, or maybe get outside of your own bubble? Or maybe you just had a breakup and you just want to get out. Whatever your goal is, that's what I say has to be your top thing, and then everything else falls under that. So before you start to travel nurse, what is your goal? Think about, what is driving you and pushing you to start traveling. And then you can either get high paying contracts, or you can get contracts in a certain area if that's the area that you want to, see and learn about. Or maybe it's just to, push yourself a little bit to make friends. Whatever it may be, you can decide that for yourself. But that's always what I say to start off with before you start travel nursing, is think about you and what you want to get out of it. And then, just like all of us do in work, I know a lot of us are type A, being nurses, we're super organized and things like that. So I definitely always say make a pro and con list. Okay. So here's one that I kind of just like made a little bit, but you guys make the pros and cons for yourself. So some of the pros and cons, like the big ones, are travel nursing is flexible. You can go wherever you want. You can take time off whenever you want, and you can decide when you want to stop or when you want to pick back up. Of course, this is what drives a lot of people, is the money. I tripled my income becoming a travel nurse, and some people have made even more. So it can be whatever range that you need. It just depends on the states, higher pay in, for example, California, etc. But I definitely know that travel nurses make way more. It just is what it is. So also, I already talked about like when, where, how. You can kind of pick that. I love the fact that I got to go to new cities. I went to New York, I went to San Francisco, I'm now in LA, which I love. So it's just a great time to just experience new cultures and, new people, and just to get outside of your own, town. Another huge thing is learning. As travel nurses, we have to be super, super flexible, but also in the learning game. You're gonna only get a day or two of orientation. You're only gonna, have driven around a city to work, maybe once before your shifts. So you're gonna learn a lot, but it's all worth it in the end, because you can say that you actually, tried something new outside of, yourself in your own home hospital. And then the freedom that it provides, you guys, when I tell you that I am living my best life because I'm a travel nurse, it's because I'm free. I get to travel internationally for months at a time. I get to pick up and go whenever I want. And I don't have to be, tied down to a staff nursing job in one city. Now, the cons, there's always going to be cons to anything you do. Of course, there's no definites. You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to get a contract, sometimes you may not get it. But that's always why you should have a backup, just in case. There's other great cities, there's other great towns that you can go to. So sometimes you won't get what you want. Moving does suck. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes picking up and packing up your life every 13 weeks is very taxing. But like I said before, I've gained so much in moving in this time frame that it's worth it. You're leaving your family and friends behind. You have a little bit of instability, like I spoke to before, and it is difficult, but like I said before, it's all worth it in the end. So these are just some of the requirements. I'll go over them quickly, but you have to have a degree, you have to have a nursing license, and you have to have at least 1.5 years of experience. I say 1.5, most of the time it's 2, but I'm a testament to, I only had 1.5 years and I was able to finesse and get to what I wanted. Picking a destination, like I said before about the distance, that'll determine your pay and the taxes, et cetera. And as I spoke before, there are other resources for that. The duration, 13 weeks, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 4, it can be, 6. There's so many different packages out there. And then the different types are rapid, crisis, and strike work. They're all different, but, they all pretty much are the same thing. You just pick up and go. So this is the key things that I would like you guys to think about as well before you start travel nursing. These are things you kind of have to think about, that sometimes as travel nurses, we just show ourselves getting to the destination. But are you going to drive or are you going to fly? That means, are you going to put your stuff in storage? Are you going to leave it with family and friends? Are your bills going to be set up, on auto pay? Whatever it is that you have to set up before you leave home, that's what you should start thinking about. Are you going to ship your car? Are you going to pack your car? Make sure you have your maintenance done on your car, etc. And the lifestyle, which is the part that I love the most, you have to be adaptable. Just put yourself out there, and you'll get what you want out of it. But the hugest things that have helped me are Facebook groups. Trusted is a good forum, so you guys can kind of meet some new people. Instagram's great as well. And the new city life and dating, it's just, I have met like some great humans just by, going to the grocery store and saying like, oh, what is this? Or what is this new thing? It's just various things that you can do in the new city life, group me's and et cetera, to kind of acclimate yourself to the new cities so you guys can make it the most of everything in travel nursing. All right, I know that was quick, but does anybody have any questions? I'm sure you do.
We have some questions. So because a couple people are interested in international travel, is there a specific agency or route that you've used for international travel nursing? And is it still an option with the pandemic?
So a lot of trips have been canceled due to the pandemic. But I joined a lot of Facebook NGO non-government organization groups. I went with Nurses with Purpose. That's a good one to go with, especially if it's your first time going. I went on the Mercy Ships, which I know a lot of people have heard about. So those are some big organizations that I've been with. But honestly, Google. It's a great source. I know that that's a terrible answer, but that's pretty much how I found out a lot of my things, as well as word of mouth. If you say that you're interested, someone knows something, and on your floor, or maybe a doctor on your unit, has trips. But it may be canceled right now due to the pandemic, but you can always get your information in and collect information so you can be prepared for 2021, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks, Britt. And second question, how do you get past the quote prior travel nurse experience required?
The past. Well, so it's actually, most of the time you don't have to have past travel nurse experience. If you can articulate yourself well enough in the interview for people to take a chance on you, i.e., I mean, practice your interview answers. If you are not, familiar with travel nursing, just say, I'm adaptable, I'm flexible, I'm ready to help out wherever I can. A manager is not going to turn you down just because you don't have prior travel nurse experience. It's not as difficult as being a new grad and getting experience. Travel nursing isn't as difficult in that aspect. But you have to sell yourself, though. That's key.
Got it. There are some questions about contracts and tax homes. We're going to talk about contracts a little bit later in the presentation, and I shared some resources on tax homes, especially because they can get pretty dicey when it comes to the tax purposes there. Another question from Adrian. I love all the pros of travel nursing, but is there any stability in the long run, such as healthcare coverage and 403B or 401k availability? It's easy to have those types of benefits with permanent jobs. This instability in the 401k, 403B, and healthcare is what makes her nervous.
So a lot of companies are changing in the way that they actually give our benefits. So all companies have benefits. Do not go with a company that does not have benefits. But just make sure that those are one of the questions that you ask your recruiter. When do your benefits start? Because some don't start till 30 days in, but a lot do start on the first day. So make sure, if that's one of your requirements, that you ask your travel nurse company and your recruiter if that's what they offer, and don't go with a company that doesn't offer what you need. But a helpful hint is a lot of travel nurses I know have a Roth IRA. I am not a tax person. Let me clarify that. I'm not a tax person, but a Roth IRA is what a lot of us have. But then also there are some companies who do offer retirement and 403Bs and things like that. It's a little bit different, what they offer, but a lot do. Like my company does. Trusted, do you guys? You guys can speak more to Trusted. So yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of companies out there that give you what you need, that doesn't require you to still be a staff nurse.
Awesome. We'll do one more question, and then we'll turn it over to the next speaker. Having done one or two contracts, did you feel like your 1.5 years nursing experience was enough, or did you wish that you waited the 2 full years?
So to clarify that, actually, that's a great question. I actually was a nurse like 4 years prior to becoming a PICU nurse. So I compounded my adult experience with my PICU experience. So yes, I did feel ready. I have a friend that actually broke her new grad contract and became a travel nurse, and she said that she was fine. So I do know a lot of people that actually have had the less experience, and they feel like they're ready. But it's all about you. You know what I mean? Like if you're getting what you need out of your orientation, your preceptors, your unit, your floor, your education, then only you can know if you're ready or not. You know what I mean? But I personally did, but it also was compounded. But do not feel nervous just because, that it has that hard line. Just like when you got the job as a new grad, you were nervous, but you did it. You know what I mean? So it's the same concept as travel nursing. You are going to be able to do it. You just have to, ask the questions that you need to on the unit. If you're unfamiliar with things, we're going to be unfamiliar with things. We don't know their unit. So just ask the charge nurses, ask the resource nurses, ask your fellow coworkers. They're always there to help. Okay.
Thanks, Britt. We're going to move on. I know we have a couple more questions in there. We'll try to get back to those at the end if we have time.
All right, guys, welcome. My name is Casey. I am a pediatric ER nurse and a community associate at Trusted Health. I'm originally from North Carolina, but I live in Austin, Texas full time now. I started off my nursing career at UNC Chapel Hill, and then I actually did a nurse residency program at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. After 2 years, I started traveling. I did my first assignment in Austin, Texas, then went to San Diego, San Francisco, back to Austin, Seattle, Phoenix, and now I do social media and events for Trusted Health. We already said this is a safe space to share information and ask questions. So a fun fact, in my license plate in high school read spicy and the S is a $. So no judgment. I don't want to hear anything about it. All right, we can move on to the next slide. My journey, just do it, guys. I love travel nursing. It's one of my greatest passions in life. It was the best 3 years of my life. As you can see, I went to a lot of cool places, did a lot of cool things, but I also met a lot of really cool people. That top left photo is actually a picture of me and my travel nurse girl gang up there. We actually traveled together on assignments to certain locations, and they're now some of my best friends I talk to every single day. Everyone's going to have a different reason to start travel nursing. Personally, me, I was just burnout. And 2 years is not a long time to be a nurse, but as you know, some situations, some settings like burnout is going to happen. And so one of the things I appreciate most about travel nursing is that it actually saved me from burnout and gave me new energy to continue to do nursing in a new setting. All right, so I have a ton to talk about, so bear with me. I'm going to talk about documents and certifications, how to choose an agency, also the application process and the interview process. So the first thing is documents and certifications. You take one thing away from this slide, understand, take pictures or get copies, digital copies of your certifications, your license, especially your BLS certification and any specialty certifications or any of your health documents. And please, please, please put it in a folder on your laptop or upload it to Google Drive or something. I cannot tell you how annoying it was because I'm an ER nurse at heart and I was so disorganized. Not all ER nurses are like that, by the way, but it was so disorganized that it was doing an Easter egg hunt all over my house and my wallets and everything, trying to find all these when I started travel nursing. Another thing to note is that you do not need these certifications and everything all together before you talk to a company or make a profile, but they are going to ask for them pretty shortly after. So it's nice to go ahead and already have it together so you're not scrambling for it. And a lot of the health documents and stuff, if you don't have your flu shot, certain titers or recent physical, the company can actually help you obtain those. So don't stress too much about that. Other thing, references. It's interesting being on this side of it. You know, as a travel nurse, now I work for Trusted. References are super important and people don't always talk about them and the importance of them, but because the application process is pretty brief, the interview process is pretty brief, your references can really make or break you getting that position. So start off, make sure it's from someone who likes you. Like, it sounds like silly advice, but make sure it's someone you have a great rapport with, someone that's going to speak highly of you. You don't want to ask cranky Sally on night shift who hates everyone, including her mama. Don't ask her. Ask the nurse that's been there, that's been supportive of you, that's been a mentor, that you know is going to spend a lot of time on that reference. It's really going to make a difference. At least one is always from the nursing manager. I understand if you're working a staff position, you're not going to be able to ask them for that until you let them know that you're going to leave. But just understand that you will probably need a reference from them. And then also note, it's got to be from a charge nurse or above. So no doctors, NPs, PAs, or lunch ladies. Okay, nursing supervisors. Next slide. Okay, choosing an agency. This is what I've mentored a lot of travel nurses over the years. And this is always the hardest thing and the scariest thing is how do you know which agency to choose? So I'm going to first start off by talking about traditional agencies, but I will talk about Trusted because we are not the traditional agency a few slides down. First thing, and this goes for Trusted, traditional agencies or whatever, don't put all your apples in one basket. So different agencies, most of the agencies have this access to the same jobs, but some of them have exclusive contracts with different hospitals. So if there's a specific location, specific hospital you want to work at, you might have to work with a certain agency. But by working with more agencies, at least 2 to start, you're going to be able to not only have access to a broader range of job opportunities, but you also will be able to have a better chance at negotiating pay by comparing pay packages if it's a traditional agency. I will talk about this later, but trusted, you don't have to negotiate, but it really helps with negotiation if you work with more than one. Overall reputation, things you can take into consideration. Are all the reviews super negative? Are their nurses getting paid late on time? Then maybe that's not an agency you want to go for. There are thousands of companies out there now, so it's kind of hard to dig through and understand if you're getting accurate information as far as their reputation and how they treat their nurses. So take everything with a grain of salt, what you see on Facebook. As someone who now manages social media, there's a lot of people airing their dirty laundry on there. And even if they have a negative experience, it does not mean that is truly representative of that company. And always take it with a grain of salt. You obviously want to look at pay. If one company looks like they pay significantly more than another company, maybe that's the company you need to go for, because let's be honest, we're here for the money too. Housing. Some companies provide housing if you'd like it, or they just provide you with a housing stipend. If you feel uncomfortable finding your own housing, maybe that's a priority for you and you want to work with a company who can find you housing. We're not going to talk about housing this time. We're going to talk about it in the second travel nursing event. I always took the stipend. I always found my own housing that was cheaper. I lived with friends. I lived, in renting rooms or whatever. I chose the location, was exactly where I wanted to be. And then I pocketed sometimes thousands of dollars by doing that. So just know what's important for you regarding housing and kind of stick to that. What are they reimbursed for? Ask that upfront and see kind of like what they're willing to reimburse for and how much you're gonna be paying out of pocket, because Brittany, I think, touched on this. Getting started with travel nursing is expensive. And so you need to know how much you're gonna have to pay out of pocket upfront. Onboarding experience. This is also something people don't always talk about, which I'm kind of shocked, but if your company does not have a good onboarding team, then it can delay your start date and that can cost you money. So ask about their onboarding experience, their start date, if they're able to get their nurses started on time, or if we hear that this company has a lot of nurses that are delayed or start late, that might be a red flag. We already touched on this. Benefits. Do they have a 401k? Do they have first day health insurance? Ask those questions. And then recruiter. Okay, again, this is not trusted. We don't have recruiters. But if you're working with a traditional agency, make sure you understand that sometimes a recruiter is more important than the actual agency itself. Recruiters work off of commission. So some of them are going to be wanting to push you into these higher paying jobs simply because they can make a higher commission rate off of you. So you want to avoid recruiters that don't have your best interests at heart. And so there might be a good recruiter and a bad recruiter at the same company. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need to write off the company itself, but maybe you need to switch recruiters if you don't feel comfortable and if you don't feel supported. So to find a recruiter, okay, listen to me. Do not post in Facebook and ask for people's recruiters in these Facebook groups. You're going to get 1,000 recommendations. It's going to be overwhelming. And also, a lot of these people are probably recommending their recruiter to make a referral bonus off of you. So it's not always going to be the best fit for you. I highly recommend doing word of mouth, like friends, coworkers have traveled and they have someone they really like and really trust. Someone that you trust their judgment, so you can trust that the person they're recommending is going to be a good fit for you. And remember, recruiters, they are not your friend and they make money off of you. Please remember that as well. Next slide. Okay. Good recruiter, bad recruiter. A good recruiter listens to you and what you want. They are responsive. They respond in a timely manner. They are knowledgeable but honest. They're willing to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I will find out for you. You don't want a recruiter that tells you they know everything all the time if it's not actually the right information, the correct information. I really, really, really respect someone who's able to say, I don't know the answer to that. Has your best interest in mind. Like I said, you don't want someone who is trying to push you in a position that is going to suit their needs and not yours, and then helps you protect your license. You want to have a recruiter that's going to have your back. If you get on an assignment and you feel like it is unsafe, the ratios are really off, or maybe it's just like not what you signed up for and you feel really uncomfortable being there, you want someone who's going to support you and advocate for you. All right, bad recruiters. I have to move my thing because it was in the way. This first one really, really, really grinds my gears. Submits you to a job without your explicit permission. If you did not give verbal or written permission for them to submit you to a job, then that can actually put you in bad standing with the hospital or the MSP, that third party they work with. Because if they submit you and you don't want that job and you're like, no, 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 I don't want that, they'll be like, oh, well, she's wishy-washy. We might not want to work with her. Or they could submit you without you knowing, and another company submits to you. And so then you have two submittals from two different companies, and that's confusing and that's difficult to work with. And that can also reflect poorly on you. So if a company or a recruiter submits you to a job without your explicit permission, that's shady and you should not work with them. If they refuse to put things in writing, there are certain things that are going to be outside of your recruiter or nurse advocate or whoever you're working with, their control. But if there's something that they're promising you, but they're not willing to put it in writing, then that's a red flag as well. Because if it's not in writing, it's not guaranteed it's going to happen. If they guilt trip you. So like what I said before, they are not your friend. And at the end of the day, you want someone who's going to have your best interest at heart. And so no one should ever make you feel guilty for doing what's best for you. And I want you to really remember that and take that to heart. If they're unresponsive, all right, bye. And if they make you feel pressured, hurried, or unsupported, and those are also red flags. You should leave. I'm talking too much. My throat's dry already. Okay. Choosing an agency, and then there's Trusted. So I work for Trusted. So disclaimer, I'm probably slightly biased. Yes, I think Trusted is the best company, but I want you to do what's best for you. I worked with 4 different travel agencies before I came to Trusted, and Trusted was by far my favorite. So much my favorite that I eventually transitioned to this role. They treated me so well for a variety of reasons, and these are the reasons that makes Trusted different from other companies. First of all, we don't have recruiters. We have nurse advocates who are nurses themselves, and you're also going to be supported by an entire care team of people. But since the nurse advocates work off of salary and not commission, there's no incentive for them to push you into roles that maybe you are not really looking for or you don't want. So your goals are aligned. And this means that if you are going to be happier working a lower pay package in San Diego, that is what they want for you. There's no reason for them to push you to that high paying package in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. Nothing against Ohio, by the way. But you really, really want someone that's going to have your back and have your goals aligned. And I think the nurse advocates are there for that. They also, since they're nurses themselves, they understand the clinical side of things. And that's also really nice to have when you're on an assignment and you run into any obstacles or anything, especially like safety wise. And obviously, since we're a company of nurses for nurses, we want to uplift and empower our fellow nurses and help them along with their career, no matter where they're at and what that looks like. And the best part about this is that you have control. So once you make a profile, you go set your preferences. You'll browse jobs with a complete pay breakdown and job details. You're not have to wait for anyone to send you a pay package. You can see everything, including the hourly rate, the stipend rate, your meals and incidentals, all the job details. And it's kind of like a dating app. You can kind of pass or swipe left. I almost said that. That is a dating app. You can pass it or you can kind of favorite it. And then you'll be able to go back and just request an interview with one click, which is great. And last but not least, better pay. We also, we have lower overhead costs the way our company is structured so that we're able to put more money back in nurses' pockets. When I worked in Phoenix, I was making about $400 more a week than other nurses who were in the same position on my unit. And that's a significant amount. I think $400, that was almost $2,000 more a month. So it's sometimes a significant pay increase too. Not always, but sometimes. All right. Application process. So first of all, you want to find the right role. Whether you're with Trusted or another company, you want to make sure you choose a role that has the right experience and the right specialty. Sometimes you'll see roles that are kind of like I was a pediatric ER. I had a recruiter that wanted me to submit for adult ER position or a mixed ER position. That wouldn't have been the right choice for me. I wouldn't have felt comfortable with that whole assignment. And that would have been really stressful and potentially unsafe. Sometimes you only get 1 to 3 days of orientation. So you want to be really comfortable in the skills with your experience and the specialty for that role that you take. Because think about it, you're going to go into it. Your nursing skills and everything is not going to change, but you're going to be in a new building with new coworkers. So you want to have like the right experience and everything for that role for sure. Now that will also help you protect your license. And this is kind of a sidebar, but network equals net worth. If you are able, if you really want to go to a specific unit at a specific hospital, try to network, try to see if you have any coworkers or anyone you know that works at that unit, to see if you can have them kind of pass on your information to the manager, see if they can refer you or if they can give you the manager's information, and see if you can kind of go ahead and get in contact with them and let them know that you're interested. And sometimes you can even land the job before the job position even opens. So that's just kind of like a sidebar, but I got about half or more of my roles that way. Okay, after you find that right role and you request an interview, you're going to complete before you request the interview, you're going to complete all the requirements, documentation for that said role. Those will be those documents that we talked about on that first slide. You're going to have to complete some skills checklists, some knowledge exams, and then your recruiter or your nurse advocate will actually submit you for that role. All right, so there's 3 types of interviews. The first one is my favorite personally, is the no interview. Typically you see that for crisis roles where they are simply trying to fill a position really quickly and they don't have time to interview. The second one is one that Brittany already touched upon. It can be an automated interview. So it'll be like a phone recording. They'll call you, they'll have questions and give you the option to record your answers right then and there. Your recruiter or your nurse advocate or whoever is helping you prepare for that should be able to give you the questions or a general idea of what to expect. Because if you're like me, I can be incredibly awkward recording a voicemail or anything else. And so just to prevent you from rambling or anything, it's nice to be a little prepared. For the phone interview, this is the most common. It's usually a nurse manager or a nursing supervisor. I have, in my personal experience, I've always found them a little bit informal, especially compared to like a real like live in-person interview. Mainly they just want to make sure you're confident, you're a good fit culturally, and you're able to hold a conversation. So, but they will ask you some clinical questions. For example, when I was applying for a pediatric ER position, they asked me, name the ESI priorities and anticipated care for a neonate with a 1 or 2 fever arriving POV to the ER. And so I had to kind of explain and walk through my rationale for the ESI and everything else. And so you will expect those clinical questions, but it can be a little bit more informal than what you've seen before in like a live interview. All right. Yeah, that was a lot, guys. So any questions for
Just
me?
to remind everybody, we're going to be sharing these slides and the recording within the next 24 hours or so. So you'll have access to go back and check all of this. There are a lot of questions. I'm just going to pick out a few. So Casey, can you talk briefly about kind of licensing and certifications? Like what do you need to have ready to go, like per state, all that good stuff?
Okay, so you're going to need to be licensed in that state, or you're going to need to have a compact license. So for example, if I have a North Carolina license, so I can work in a variety of states automatically across the US because it's part of the compact licensure agreement, the ENLC. And so if it's a state that's a part of that agreement, there's no paperwork, there's nothing you need to do. You're automatically qualified to work in that state. And as we see more states move towards that, the easier it will become to kind of work across state lines. If it's a state like California, people always have a harder time doing California, so I'll speak to that one. You'll need to apply to their board of nursing. You'll need to get fingerprints, typically fill out an application and send those in. And sometimes it can take anywhere from like 3 months to 6 months to get those. So if it's someplace that you really want to travel to, go ahead and be aware of like how long it'll take you to get it, if they provide temporary license. And we actually can include some really great licensure guides that we've put together that's completely updated. So if you want to look for any specific state, that information will be there for you. Did that cover everything?
I think so.
Thing to note is that every single assignment is going to require BLS, so make sure you at least have your BLS card. And then if there's anything specific that you need for your specialty, make sure that's up to date as well. Like for me, pediatric ER, I needed ALS and PALS for almost anywhere I went. So I had to have that before I could start my assignment. So if there's anything specific to your specialty, you'll also need to have that. But a lot of times it's pretty rare that they ask for other things. Only things I've been asked for before, in addition, was some hospitals required TNCC, which luckily I already had, or like CPI, which sometimes you can work with your agencies to get those quickly before your start date.
Excellent. A lot of questions on healthcare. It seems to be the consensus that if you want to be on the safe side, it sounds from Russ and from Brittany that just carry your own health insurance in case there are gaps, so you're covered. Anything else to add on that end, Case?
So I did it both. I traveled for over 3 years, and so at first I started off just doing the taking the company's first day insurance if they offered it. A lot of time, and this includes Trusted, you have up to, I think it's, Russ, you might have to correct me, but it's 30 days after your end date, your coverage will automatically cover you for. If it's not 30 days, it might be just until the end of that month. So if you end on the 5th of November, then they'll cover you till the end of November. And so sometimes you can get away with that if you're not taking large gaps, but I eventually actually got my own insurance and did that. And it was like kind of shitty insurance, to be completely honest with you, but it was like affordable. I don't have any pre-existing conditions or anything, so I was able to do with something on the cheaper side. Oh yes, sorry, that was a great point. You can also do Cobra too to help you with those coverage gaps too. So you just might need to sit down, understand how long you're going to be traveling for, what type of gaps you're going to be looking for in coverage. And it might be cheaper for you to do your own insurance versus doing Cobra in between assignments and such.
Yep. Great. Let's see. We had some questions about submitting letters for their references on Trusted. Sounds like Russ got that covered. There are a lot of questions about, who did you use to carry your healthcare coverage and how much did it cost? Obviously, that's going to really vary person to person. And to Russ's and Casey's point, Cobra can be really expensive. So I think in a pinch, it'll work great for some people, but for others, based on your pre-existing conditions, your age, all that good stuff, obviously shop around. But Casey, add anything else that I'm missing on that front?
No, and I'm hesitant to give you any names or anything because I think you probably could find a better insurance broker than I found. It was someone that I had found through another travel nurse. So I would just honestly just do your research and see what's out there, unless Russ or Brittany have anything to add to that.
No, I'm the terrible travel nurse who lapses in her insurance, so I do not want to tell y'all anything.
Right. I think we'll do 2 more. We'll try to answer these questions really quick. So Brittany, in like maybe 30 seconds, what has traveling been like during COVID? Because you've traveled a lot.
It's been difficult, I will say. I came back homeless, carless, jobless, but I'm resilient. That's what you have to learn as a travel nurse. And I just got it done. And I had a 6-month job. So I figured it out. But I know a lot of people got canceled and et cetera. But like, as I said before, the pros and cons, you just got to figure it out, think on your toes, and go to maybe like Montana. but I did it though. So yeah. I think somebody also asked about pediatrics. It's been slim pickings, but they're starting to pick up with jobs. So hopefully, whenever you're looking to travel, it'll pick up.
And just a note, my friend's in Montana on an assignment, and her pictures are amazing, by the way.
We'll do one more quick question, then we'll move along to Russ. How do you ask your manager or your staff job to be a reference when you know that she'll be upset or sad to see you leave and try to persuade you to stay?
Yeah, I briefly touched on this, but just to expand on that. So the way that I did it, my staff job, I had such a great relationship with my manager, and I was really, I bawled in her office when I told her I was going to leave. But if it's a great manager who's going to support you, they're going to really want to write that reference and help you achieve that next step. If it's someone you don't feel as comfortable with, I would just wait until you know you're leaving for sure and you tell them, and then I would ask them for a reference after that. Good leadership is always going to want what's best for you. And so I'm hoping that for your sake that it should be an easy conversation to ask that reference like it was for me. But if it's not, see if there's a nursing supervisor or maybe a different, because sometimes some units have multiple managers. There's a different manager that would be easier to kind of have that conversation with. But at the end of the day, a lot of positions do require manager references. So it might just be a hard conversation after letting them know that you're no longer going to be working there. But talk to the, when you talk to your agency and see what the requirements are. Maybe they won't require the nursing manager, but like I said, most do.
Great. Thanks, Case. We're going to move on to Russ.
What's up, everybody? I've got a haircut since that last picture. My name's Russ, critical care nurse, now a nurse advocate team lead here at Trusted. My internet power is dying, so I'm gonna plug that in real quick. Proudest titles are being a husband and father, originally from Maine, so that otherwise known as almost Canada. But I've been living full time on the road in my RV with my family for the last almost 4 years now. If you haven't watched Yellowstone, I keep telling everybody this, you got to watch it. It made me want to be a rancher, even though I'm certain I'm not cut out for it. Graduated in 2013. Started off, yes, Kelsey. Started off in CVICU and totally failed. That's a good story for any new grads out there. And then just, kind of progressed in my specialties before I made the leap to start traveling as an adult ICU nurse. And similar to Britt, I only had about 1.5 years of ICU experience, but a lot of experience before that where I felt, totally comfortable to hit the ground running. Fun fact about me, no weird license plate numbers, but I do have 9 siblings. And so there's 10 of us. All our names begin with R. And our parents have never really told us why, but it's a fun little mystery that we share amongst ourselves. So my journey, my quote for you would be kind of similar to Casey and Britt's actually is, oh, I guess we're skipping that. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And what I mean by that is if you feel strongly about doing something, going for it, make a rough plan, but really what's going to get you through is the motivation and the drive for what you're trying to do. So for my wife and I, it was like, all right, we're young, we're healthy, we have this incredible profession of nursing that can take us anywhere in the world, yet we're not going anywhere we want to. So we bought an RV, sight unseen, had never towed an RV before, never spent a night in one. Hitched it up 6 months later, and we hit the road on our first travel assignment. And here you see a bunch of pictures of spots we've been to. I don't have any pictures in Scrubs, but if you ever connect with me on your journey with Trusted Health, that's likely, hopefully, what my office is looking like. But yeah, go to the next slide. So I'm going to cover contract details. I could spend probably hours talking about this. I'll try to hit on the main points, and then hopefully that'll open up some questions for y'all. But just want to quickly get into like offer versus contract versus confirmation. So you interview with the manager, they give you a verbal offer, you receive an official offer through your agency. That is just an intent. It's not like hey, this is happening. The next part, once you work out all the details, is the contract. So a contract is between you and the agency, not you and the facility, like Britt was alluding to earlier. And then the confirmation is when you sign the contract with the agency confirms all those details plus some other stuff with the facility, and you're off to the races, getting onboarded and ready to rock. Some important details to consider, like just baseline stuff, is like in the contract, anything you discussed with the manager, any variables that you saw about the job, like you want to have that in there. So the shift, if the manager told you days, you applied for days, make sure it says days. Make sure if you're on a 312, 410, 5/8 scenario, that's written out. Make sure the location is accurate. A lot of these health systems have lots of hospitals within the same city, and you want to make sure you know exactly where you're signing up for. And I'll touch on the etc. exclamation point a little bit more, but that's like your stipends. That's kind of the biggest piece. Stipends, policies, and we'll get into that here in a second. But when you consider a pay package, it's important to realize it's a big pie. So the facility has a need. they have an associated bill rate that they give to the agencies to build their packages for their nurses. So that's why you see the variant, like every agency is getting the same bill rate, but how they build it out for their nurses is totally different. That there's tons of variables like operating costs. Do recruiters take commission versus like nurse advocates not taking commission? Like all that will affect it. And then how they make your package is also affected. So some companies will lean towards a higher hourly, lower stipends, or vice versa. They'll reimburse for you to travel to location and back. They'll cover the cost of maybe a parking pass or scrubs. But it's important not to get distracted by that stuff, because really it's a marketing thing at the end of the day, because it's all coming out of the same pie. So it's just how is it sliced. So for example, Trusted, we don't negotiate packages as a nurse first agency, and being run by nurses, we just want to give our nurses the best deal from the get-go and put the most money in your pocket that we can on a weekly basis. The reason for that, A, it's transparent and it's honest, and B, it allows us to operate in an efficient manner, which only frees up more funds and time for the people on the internal side to grow the business, get new partnerships with new facilities, and really open up your opportunities moving out. But if you do have to negotiate, if you're going with another agency, first off, always try to, you know what I mean? Like, don't be, it's kind of a hard thing to do sometimes, but don't be afraid to bring up that conversation. Search around. Like, you may see other agencies posting that same job, even if it's $50 more, like send them a screenshot. And sometimes that'll be the little nudge that they need to get you a better deal. All right, so some of the like nitty gritty stuff, really important things to keep in mind are some penalties. So at Trusted, we never pass on any penalty, like cancellation fees, missed hour fees to our nurses. We don't believe in doing that. But you should, even before you sign a contract or look at a contract, you should ask that agency, do you guys have a cancellation fee? So for example, you sign on to go work at UCSF for 13 weeks. You're there for 2 days, something in life happens and you have to cancel. There's a lot of cost incurred, not only to onboard you, but also the facility side can charge a fee to the agency because now they're out a nurse and it's hard to fill. And some agencies will pass that cost on to you. So you definitely want to ask about that. Another cancellation related item is like if you call in sick, need a mental health day, are canceled and you can't work your full shifts that week, some agencies will charge you for that as well. So you definitely want to ask about that early on. Non-compete clause, what is this? Certain agencies and certain facilities have rules where if you work with them on assignment, you can't go work with another agency within that health system for a certain amount of time, or you can't be a traveler and move into a staff role for, let's say, 30, 60, 90 days. It's all kind of different depending on where you're at. But you certainly want to ask about that because that can really tie you down. And if that's not what if you're not looking to be with that agency for an indefinite amount of time, you should definitely approach that conversation. Certain policies to keep in mind, guaranteed hours, for example, like what is the cancellation policy? So if you're able and willing to work your shift, but it's low census or whatever the reason is and you get called off, will you still have the opportunity to get your hours? Now this varies by facility to facility and by agency to agency, but like with Trusted, we follow whatever the facility's cancellation policy is. So for example, the most common one is 3 shifts per 13 weeks. So if you get canceled a shift for low census, you won't receive your hourly for that shift, but Trusted will always pay your stipends. Now, let's say you've been canceled 3 times, it comes to your 4th cancellation, and you get low census again, we will then cover your hourly and your stipends. So whatever is in your best interest, if we can make it happen, we'll do it. And then sick time. So most agencies won't have like vacation time banks, at least not that I've seen, but almost all of them will have sick time. And there's various rules around that. I can only really speak to Trusted's because I can't remember what the agency that I traveled with, what their rule was, but you accrue sick time from day 1, but you can't use it until like the 90th day. and that stays in the bank for you to use for 365 days. So like you take a few weeks off, you come back, that will still live there for you, and you'll have access to it to use if you call out sick. Feel like I'm rushing here, but I want to cover all this stuff. Amendments. This question comes up a lot. So let's say you're onboarding and your drug screen results aren't back yet, and you're supposed to start on Monday. The agency will always have your contract line up, the start date line up with the day you're first physically going to be working. So don't be surprised if you get a follow-up amendment contract that says, instead of Monday, you're starting Tuesday. They're not trying to fastball you. It's just the nature of the business. And that's the main reason that happens. Amendments can also happen for bill rate changes, either up or down. And if like you have, additional time off requests, trying to think of some other big ones. Those are the two main reasons. I saw a question earlier in the chat about cancellation. Like if I get there and I have to leave like midway through, it's important to know, to really describe the why you're leaving. Is it just because you're like, I don't really dig this place? Like that can be a reasonable enough reason. But if it's a life scenario, you got to get home to your family, unsafe staffing, whatever the reason is, at Trusted, we'll never pass those fees on to you, but we definitely want to know why, so we can help advocate for you and share that with the facility. Because if you just leave the unit, and this happens sometimes, you just leave the unit, don't come back, and just kind of ghost your agency in the facility, that can result in you getting blackballed. And depending on what agency you're working with and like what their reach is across the country or what health system, for example, HCA is huge. If you kind of burn that bridge, they can cut you off from all future employment at their facilities. And that can, down the road, should you change your mind, that can be really costly. Extensions. Let's say you're on a 13-week assignment, you're loving it. Your manager says, hey, we want to get you on for another 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever that time is. Mention that to your recruiter, your nurse advocate, and they can make that happen. So let's say your assignment ends on November 20th. You can start your assignment on November 21st, or you want to take a couple weeks off. All those details can be worked out at that point. Certain facilities, depending on the time of year or like what their census and like acuity looks like, will offer bonuses. Not all of them, but some do. And so you definitely want to address that as well. And then also sometimes, let's say you start in the summer, you're extending through the winter. Well, now the market rates for your position have gone up. And maybe you've noticed that in forums or searching jobs. Definitely want to ask about that as well. And at Trusted, anytime a bill rate goes up, we'll always pass that on to you and make you aware. Zoomed, dude. How long did that? Oh, a minute to spare.
You did great. Fantastic. Yeah. We've got a couple minutes just to wrap up with the last questions. Some of the questions are already answered by Brittany and Casey about traveling as a pair, some extra insight on different things. And then Kelsey just asked, bonuses are given within the facility or agency?
Great question. So generally, the facility, if they want to keep you around, they'll offer like a bonus to extend or to extend, and once you complete, get that bonus. That's how it works with Trusted. So we'll always pass on that full amount to the nurse. We don't offer bonuses to extend because generally, this is a general rule, agencies, they have that pie that we were talking about. They take out a little slice because if they want to keep you on after, they can present that to you again. But really that money should have already been yours from the beginning. We just give it all to you at the beginning. So that's why we don't have the bonus structure that way.
And then Molly asked,
yeah, what about holidays? Can you earn holiday part-time contract? Want to work? Yeah, absolutely. So at time of submission and then following up at time of interview, you should mention what time off you want. So obviously holidays are coming up, so we're seeing a lot of requests for Christmas, Thanksgiving, and the like. And you just want to be transparent and upfront about that, so that the facility side and your agency can work to make that happen. And then as far as pay rates go, absolutely. So the holiday pay is based on the agency's holidays. So like Indigenous Day on Monday, like that's not usually a holiday pay scenario, but Thanksgiving and the day before is, Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's. So you would want to see that in writing somewhere in the contract. With Trusted, when you look at a match page, all that is broken down for you to see right up front.
Excellent. Well, we're going to wrap it up. That was so great. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Casey. That's it for tonight. I'm also just going to share a quick tidbit in the chat before we leave, just about the next travel nursing event we're going to have on 10/28. That's October 28th. This is kind of a 2.0, if you will. So please join us for that. And if you have a moment, please give us feedback on this event. You'll get a survey through your email within the next 20 minutes. It will really, really help us make sure that our future events are exactly what you want and need. So thanks to everybody for joining, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.